Scott Golden here with the Golden Opportunities Coaching YouTube channel. Welcome to those of you who are new. Welcome to back to those of you who are seasoned veterans. What we do around here, we make social and psychological conditions and situations logical and relatable. So we hope that you are helped here. In any event, I encourage you to subscribe, like, and comment. If you have an audio you'd like to hear, please feel free to leave it in a comment below. We'll do that within usually 24 hours. Today we're going to talk about hidden signs of depression or lurking depression. So there's about 4 or 5 of these, and we can go through them really quickly. So the first one is poor focus. If you have difficulty focusing, its chances are because you're nostalgically going back to a negative vein or a negative focus. This usually happens because people are struggling in various ways to deal with their emotions, and they go through what's known as the repetitive loop. Tony Robbins calls it a figure eight. So usually that goes something like, I'm angry because I can't control my emotions. I'm angry, I'm angry, I'm angry, I'm angry. And then I'm tired of being angry, and so I'm burnt out, and then I get sad at all the time I've wasted. And then I'm sad, I'm sad, I'm sad, I'm sad, and I'm back to angry. Usually the loop is anger to sadness or sadness to anger, but it can also be something like listlessness and laziness to frustration, laziness to sadness, despair to despondency. In other words, there's usually a loop of negative emotion vacillating between two emotions that make it virtually impossible to make progress or to focus on things as they normally would be. Now, that's the first one. The second one is it's really hard to keep a schedule. If you find that you are always running late, or maybe you show up early and you have to wait around a ton just because you're afraid to show up late, or you have difficulty keeping meal schedules, have difficulty keeping sleeping schedules, have difficulty keeping meetings with friends or professionally, chances are you're depressed, because what happens is you think you're moving faster than you are. You think you are dealing with things in a manageable manner or way, and in reality, you're burned out, you're frustrated, you're feeling negative, you're feeling overwhelmed, and then you are then incapable of keeping that schedule. And so a lot of times what will happen is you start the day feeling like today's going to be the day you master it. By midday, you're starting to feel tired and you're feeling like you're running behind, so you start to beat yourself up on the inside. By the close of the business day, you promise yourself you'll do better tomorrow. When you go to bed, you make that internal promise, and then you rinse and repeat, and you do it again. Another one is if you're struggling with hidden depression, chances are you're an overthinker. You will philosophically think more than you actually interact with people. So questions like why not, what if, which are beautiful questions to change things if you actually do change your thought pattern, become the center of your internal focal point. Now, the trouble with this is when they're the center of your internal focal point but no change happens, all you're doing is looping through negative emotions of feeling like you never have any answers. You may interact with others ad nauseum, have deep conversations, philosophical conversations, but never come to conclusions. You may lose time. In other words, have a conversation that lasts several hours, feel fulfilled for about 10 minutes, and then look for another of the same or similar outlet. Another one is trust. When you're depressed, trusting people becomes impossible because you automatically go to the vein of believing and looking for ways that people are going to hurt you. I can honestly say, as a PTSD survivor and abuse victim, this is something that I've personally experienced. I've graduated to neither trusting nor distrusting a person and letting their actions prove whether they're trustworthy or not, but I used to be automatically distrusting. I used to believe, and this was also conditioned behavior, but I used to believe that every person was out to do or get something, and it was just a matter of time before they would reveal it. So if you're struggling with depression or anxiety or PTSD, chances are trusting people becomes exceptionally difficult. This is because you're reminded in your neurosynaptic function is focused on every time your trust has been previously broken, you've been previously hurt, negatively impacted, and that sort of thing. The last on the list, unexpected anger or hostility, which sarcasm counts. So if you find that you're being suddenly very sarcastic or negatively influenced, if you find that you are constantly feeling like you just want to lash out and tell somebody off, even if they haven't necessarily done much, or if you feel like no matter what you say or do, there's always kind of that biting sarcasm or frustration beneath the surface, and you can't place the why, or you can place the why, and it's what I call rapid fire why. In other words, I'm angry at this and 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 that, and you can list like 20 things you're angry at and not even feel any better. Chances are there's depression going on, and some of that may actually be neurosynaptic. So, I'm not a person that necessarily believes in chemical imbalance depression the way some people do, because and here's a truth, and I encourage you to research this. There is not currently a continual process of assessment of whether a person is depressed or not. What that means is this: someone can say, a psychologist, psychiatrist, counselor, therapist can say you're depressed, but they can't take a blood test and say, yep, he or she is depressed. And so until there's a scientific provable way to prove the chemical part of depression, it's more likely to say that neural pathways, which we have researched in great detail, which is the things that connect in our brain that allow us to have feelings in some ways, or also in another way, they control movement. Certain neural pathways control physical sensation, others control movement, others control emotional cortex and center. But if those are wired in a way that is skewed toward negativity or skewed towards the receptors that deal in negative emotions, you can actually become depressed and thus wired for negativity, which is basically at a lot of times when someone is put on medication, it's because they express being wired for negativity, and then the medication, which, by the way, and here's something that some people will find a little controversial: medication will not cure your depression; it will just help you manage it. If you are depressed and you are working with a counselor or a minister or a coach or a friend or somebody, that's a good thing. But if you're depressed and you're only doing the medication thing, sooner or later the odds are in the favor, over 80%, that the medication will stop working, because the neurotransmitters and neuroreceptors in your brain will eventually adapt to the medication you're on. That's why there's actually been people who are on antidepressants and antipsychotics for literally sometimes months or years, and then all of a sudden they have a relapse, so to speak. And what happens there is the medication stops functioning, it stops working, and then you have to re-regulate. So it's important to be working on remapping the brain and reacting to emotions differently while getting other forms of treatment. Anyway, this is, or was, Scott Golden Opportunities Coaching. If you're struggling with emotional challenges and you'd like to work on them for the first time, or maybe for the first time in a while, please feel free to reach out. We are doing our Social Reconnection Special, $50 rate, and that is for anyone who is new to private services with me. Please feel free to reach out on Twitter at PO Perception, or here on YouTube in the YouTube submission box. And I encourage you, keep your feet on the ground, your mind in the moment. Until next time, everybody.